All right, students, today we're looking at section 5.3, proportions. This can be found on page 238. Let's get started. First, we need to define what a proportion is. A proportion is an equation stating that two ratios are equal. You'll remember that from the last lesson we covered ratios. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities or two numbers, okay? We typically, in this proportion section, we'll be writing all of our ratios as fractions. Remember, there are three different ways to write a ratio. One of them is as a fraction. And for today's lesson, we'll be using just that way as writing it. So a proportion is an equation that stating that two ratios are equal. So basically it's like saying this fraction and this fraction are equal to each other. That's all a proportion is. So mostly what we'll be doing here is we'll be answering this question: are these ratios proportional to each other? That's just a fancy way of saying, are these fractions equal to each other, okay? So you do need to write this out, but maybe underneath this you should write down, this means, are the fractions equal to each other, okay? That would be a good thing to write there for your own notes. We have two different methods we're going to use in this section to help us answer that question. One is method one, write in simplest form. Basically, you have two fractions. If you put them both in simplest form and they're the same fraction, then of course they're equal to each other. So let's look at an example. So for this first example, we have 10 over 20 and 7 over 14. So basically the question is 10 over 20 is, we're wondering if these are equal. So we're going to put them just like this with an equal sign, but we're going to put kind of a question mark over the equal sign because we don't know. Are these two equal? That is the question. Are they equal? So what you do is you put them in simplest form. Well, what is the simplest form for these fractions? Well, how do you simplify 10 over 20? Well, cannot 10 go into 10 and 10 go into 20? Yep. That simplifies to 1/2, which is equal to, and over here we have 7 goes into 7 one time, 7 goes into 14 two times, and so you have 1 over 2. So hey, that's 1/2, 1/2. Yes. Cha-ching. These are proportional to each other. Yay. Example 2. So once again, we're going to write these fractions. So I have 45 over 18 is equal to, we don't know, put a question mark there, is equal to 130 over 30. Well, for this one, I can tell that 9 goes into both of them. 9 goes into 45 5 times. 9 goes into 18 2 times. We're still wondering if it's equal to each other. For these numbers, I notice 10 can go into both of them. 10 goes into this number 13 times, goes into this number 3 times. Now they're not equal to each other, but let's just make sure we didn't make a mistake. Look at our work carefully and make sure that the fractions can't be simplified any further. They can't be, so this is a no. We would write down no. No. They are not proportional to each other, okay? Up here, check mark, and you could write yes. Yes, they are proportional to each other, okay? There's a second method that you can use other than the simplifying method, and it's called the cross products, or you could just say cross multiply. I want you to write out cross products because you will see the term cross products used in directions, and it is helpful to know that when it says cross product, it's just meaning cross multiply, okay? So what we do here is we take once again, our ratios, and we write them as equal to each other. We have our 7 over 21. I made that almost into a 1. That bad. 21. So 7 over 21 is equal to 2 over 6. We don't know. We gotta find that out. So I multiply my 6 and my 7 together. I multiply my 2 and my 21 together. And so I put it over here at the top. So my 6 times my 7, I get 42. is equal to 21 times 2 is 42. So yes, they equal each other. Check. Yes, the answer is yes. Remember, we're answering that first question up there. Are these ratios proportional to each other, okay? That's the question we're answering yes and no to. Next, we have these ones. Same thing, just write them down. Okay, should not take you very long to write them down. Equal, we're not sure yet. Cross multiply, cross multiply. So I have 5 times 4 is 20. 3 times 7 is 21. Are these two numbers equal to each other? That's a no-go. That's a no. So the answer is no. Okay? So those are the two methods, and it pretty much is that simple. Okay? All right, now we're going to look at something else in just a minute. But these are proportions. Look back over the notes. Make sure you understand it clearly. Remember, go through, put any question marks you might have by any of these problems in case you don't understand them. All right. Let's take a look at the next part. We are going to take a look at this right here. 5-4, solving proportions. So every time you see the word solving, you should know that there's going to be variables involved. All right? And this is where proportions kind of come in handy because we'll see how we use them, especially later on. We will use them quite often, quite often. All right, so we're told to solve. That's all the directions we have here. No definitions, just jump right into the work. So here we have two different examples. We have example 1, A and B. So make sure you copy these down. So for example 1A, I have this right here. Proportion. It is a proportion because we have this ratio and this ratio, and they're equal to each other. We're told, this time it's not a question of are they equal to each other, we're told they're equal to each other, okay? Well, if they're equal to each other, then there's a few things that we know. We know that these fractions have to be equal to each other. That doesn't mean x equals 30, because there's not a 15 up here, there's a 5. So you could think, and some of these are pretty obvious what x is going to be. If you just use a little bit of mental math, you can figure it out. But there's a way that you can use to guarantee to get the answer, and it's using the cross-multiplying method. So if these two are indeed a proportion, we're told these are proportions, you're told to solve them, you're going to cross-multiply. You're going to cross-multiply. And you're going to get 15 times x, which is just 15x, is equal to, what is 5 times 30, and you get 150. Okay, so 15x is equal to 150. So if they're proportional, if I multiply these two and multiply these two, they should be equal to each other. Well, if that's true, I end up with this should look familiar. This should look a whole lot like a one-step equation, okay guys? And you should know how to solve a one-step equation. So once you get to this point, what you're going to do is, I'm going to rewrite this. So you got to that point. Next, you're going to have to divide by 15, divide by 15. So we get x is equal to 10. And that's our answer. See there? Okay. So again, we could cross multiply. Cross multiply. We would get 7x. 7x. I always like to put my x on this side, on the left side of my equal sign. Because notice over here, when I multiplied, I did the same thing over here. I just like to do it that way. You don't have to. I just feel like it works out better. It's easier for me. All right, so multiply these, 2 times 21, and you get 42. All right, so we need to divide. Now again, I'm going to write this down just right here. 7x equals 42. At this point, you might already know what x is, but we got to work it all the way out just to make sure. And you would get x is equal to 6, okay? That's how you do those ones. Let's take a look at a few more that might be a little bit more challenging for us. Woohoo, challenging. We like it, challenging. Yeah. All right, this next one. Cross multiply again. Cross multiply again. 30 times x. Oh, I don't know what that is. I don't, It's just 30x is equal to, what's 9 times 16? Oh dear, 9 times 16. Well, I know that 9 times 6 is 54. I know that 9 times 10 is 90. So 90 plus 54, that would be 144. Okay, so 144. Well, how do I get rid of what I need to do? Get x by itself? How do I do that? I got to get rid of the 30 now. So once again, copy the whole thing down. This is for your notes' sake. This is for you to look back, okay? Copy the whole thing down. Now divide by 30. Divide by 30. You get x is equal to what? Well, what is 144 divided by 30? I could be wrong, but I think we're going to have a remainder, okay? Let's find out what it is. So it looks like we're going to end up with, let's do the long division. I'm going to do my scratch work down here. We have 30 on the outside, 144 on the inside. 30 can go into 144, is it 4 times? If you multiply back, you would get this. You subtract, you end up with 24. So x is equal to 4 and 24 over 30. Now that fraction can reduce. That fraction would equal 4 and 6 goes into both of them. That goes in 4 times and 6 goes into that 5 times. So you end up with 4 and 4/5, okay? So that's the final answer. All right, the last fraction we're going to do is actually for you to do on your own. Good luck.